Okay, so I want to talk about a personal project of mine that I've been working on. It's a user set for Talon Voice called Omega Mouse. Omega Mouse is basically an alternative way to interact with Control Mouse. I'm assuming it's going to be for kind of a niche audience. There are three modes. They're not Talon modes, they're Talon contexts, but three different behaviors. So the three modes, there's a full mode, which is kind of the initial intent behind the project, and it uses like a two-phase clicking process to move the cursor and click to what you want, kind of like zoom mouse. It's basically control mouse and zoom mouse combined in certain ways. Instead of course, the screen zooming in wherever you look, the cursor will just go to where you when you pop over there, and then you use your head mouse or your head tracking in order to move the mouse to where you want to go. So there are a couple other modes too. There's like a light and basic mode. They work a little differently, but all the modes kind of follow the same basic principle, which is that the cursor does not move to your gaze until you pop, and then at which point head tracking turns on, and then you use that until you make your selection. Just like Talon Voice, the user set's free to download. There'll be a link in the description. You just get it from the GitHub. This is also probably going to be a long video because I'm not very good at keeping things short. So I'll include timestamps so you can just skip over to what part you're interested in. It's probably going to be like a basic overview of Omega Mouse. I'll kind of probably start off talking about like why I made it, like requirements, that kind of thing, and then I'll get into explaining what each of the modes do, plus probably a quick demo of how they work. And I'll probably make some other videos that just go over each mode specifically, just brief little demos so you kind of get an idea of what's going on. Before I start, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Talon Slack channel, specifically to Aegis, Chaos Parrot, Andreas Arvidsson, Timo, Tommy Pinsel, and Simowat Musiatowicz. I think I got your name right. And some others who helped answer a lot of my like intro basic rookie questions when it comes to coding and Python and Talon and stuff, because I'm not a coder. So a lot of this was stuff I was picking up just along the way. So the Talon Slack channel will also be in the description. And let's just get into it. So what will you need to run Omega Mouse? Well, you'll need Talon Voice. The latest public release is a 0.4 version, I believe, and that should include all the functionality you need. I wrote this. I'm subscribed to the beta, which gets updates a lot sooner. So I was creating this before the 0.4 release was made public. But as far as I know, it should include all the functionality you need for the code to work. You're going to need the Talon community repo. This was formerly known as canals j_talon. You're going to need a Tobii Eye Tracker 5, and you'll need a microphone. I'm using something very cheap. I think it came with my Dragon software back from whenever, so it's like a COS CS100 or something. It's a USB, real basic USB headset. So there are probably better options out there. It works okay. Oftentimes it'll misunderstand what I'm saying, so it's not the highest quality. The unofficial Talon wiki page has a page dedicated to microphones and stuff, so I'll just include that I'll include those links into the description. So those are basically the four things you need. Let's see, Omega Mouse might be for you if you kind of fall into these little categories. Like I said, it's kind of for a niche audience, because it's a clunkier and slower way to use control mouse than this sort of default way of doing it. For reasons personal to me, and probably for people in a similar situation, it doesn't work the best. So I tried to make an alternative. So this might be for you if you have to use one eye tracking. If blinking really throws off your cursor. If you find the cursor always following your gaze can be a little annoying or straining on the eye, a bit distracting. Or if you like zoom mouse, but maybe you kind of want to use the sort of new control mouse features and things. So yeah, again, just another disclaimer, I'm not a coder, so I don't think the code is very probably robust or advanced. It's basically just turning the gaze tracking and head tracking functions on and off given certain circumstances. So it's not incredibly robust. Like I say, it's clunkier because everything you do is going to require extra steps than if you're able to just use control mouse. But I personally found that was not the easiest option for me. So I'll get into kind of like why I made Omega Mouse, or why I tried to write it. So one was that, yeah, the cursor always following my eye gaze was a little annoying. It's something I probably could get used to, and I think it's something you could solve with just like a shortcut to either hide the cursor or to freeze it briefly or whatever. But it was noticeably difficult on my eyes. More specifically, though, I have a sort of, I don't know if call it rare exactly, but a condition in my right cornea called keratoconus, which means that my cornea is not a like spherical shape; it's a little more domed. And really specific to me, the trauma was done with eye rubbing, so the bottom of my eye cornea is like steeper than the top part, and the Tobii eye tracker actually captures that discrepancy. The way the Tobii eye tracker works is it uses near infrared light to reflect light off your corneas, and that's how it's able to figure out where you're looking. So it can actually detect my cornea being a little misshapen, and it when I use two eye tracking or both eye tracking mode, it actually offsets the result of where the cursor is because the right eye is putting in like false data, basically. And my left eye isn't perfect either, but it's a lot better. So, in fact, I can even show you. Here, let me get this going. Control mouse. Okay, so this is me looking around. This is only left eye tracking, so it's going to be a little more jittery. I'm looking at this PC, and you can see how it's jittery. And that's just because your eye jitters with one eye, there's less there to average things out. The third issue, well, actually, before I get to that, I'll just demonstrate. So with the left eye tracking, I can get down to this bottom bar down here. Now, if I were to go to both eye tracking, I can see up top, but if I look down at the bottom of the screen, it doesn't quite get down there. I'm looking at the icons down there, and it won't go. So I have to look off screen, then it goes. So it's a little annoying, and it makes certain things just not quite as accurate or even usable. And then, of course, the other issue is my blinking. For some reason, when I blink, it's always moving the cursor down. I don't know if you can see that, but it makes it very difficult to select anything. I don't know if it's just because, and the issue is that, so Control Mouse has a function built in that when you start to move your head, it turns off eye tracking so you can so it only focuses on the head. So blinking isn't an issue. It's a cool feature, but for some reason for me, it just doesn't work very well. It's not consistent. When I'm moving my head around and I blink, sometimes it starts to move down, sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know if this is because of a setup of mine, if it's because of the biology of my eyes and my cornea. Can be a little difficult and a little annoying to use. But for whatever reason, one eye tracking is much better for me. So I'll switch over to that. Use only left eye. Okay. So I went over how I found the eye tracker following me kind of annoying. The keratoconus in my eye sort of throws off some of the features that I guess are used better with 2-eye tracking, and then the blinking is a bit of an issue for me. There is, and before actually we even get into using this stuff, I will say that there's sort of a secret hidden mode you can try in Talon Voice's control mode. Let me set it up. So if you use both eyes, you kind of have to use both eyes for this, and you turn off gaze control, the idea is that if you look away from the cursor, so I'm going to look over at the line user.omega mouse mode equals 0, and I move my head, it pops over. So if you look away from the cursor and you move your head, it'll actually pop over there, which is really cool. Problem is, it doesn't work that well with single eye tracking. So if you're like me and you have to use one eye tracking, it doesn't work very well. It catches like maybe 5% of the time, just enough to kind of screw things up a little bit. So there's no way to turn it off at the moment. That'll hopefully change at some point, and I can update the code. But I would say if you find that you want to use Omega Mouse, it's probably best to use single eye tracking, because that way once in a while it'll catch, but not usually. So I don't know if I can get it caught there. For me, it tends to catch on the right middle of the screen, the left middle of the screen. Sometimes it'll catch. I can't get it to work right now. But with 2-eye tracking, it works often. So I recommend giving that a try before you jump into Omega Mouse, because the default ways are definitely smoother. Okay, so the other issue I had with Zoom Mouse, and this is just a personal sort of preference, Zoom Mouse works okay. It is kind of an older, deprecated version of eye tracking, so it's not being supported anymore, and sometimes it's a little annoying not having head tracking functionality, so I'll just demo that quickly. Control mouse, zoom mouse. Alright, so now if I pop into an area, it'll zoom in. So let's try popping into select the mouse.talon tab. And there you go. So that works well, but sometimes the eye tracking can be a little off, and I don't know if it's because like the smoothing algorithm or something, you just want to be able to move your head a bit more. So let's try that. So if I want to click on, say, the file menu, so I can get there, but I'm looking at file and it's a little low, so I can't just nudge it up. I have to look above it a little bit to get there, and that can just be a little annoying. So let me switch this off. Okay. So anyways, with this all kind of out of the way, let's try and use Omega Mouse. Let's talk about Omega Mouse, how it works, kind of the different modes you can use. So the main, I guess, thing to start with is that there are 3 modes. There's full mode, which is sort of the original intent, like I said before, uses 2-phase clicking. There's light mode, which splits the interaction kind of two phases. You use the pop sound to move the cursor to where you're looking, and then you use a voice command to actually click. So it splits that process up. And then there's basic mode, which is the same thing really as light mode, except the head tracking does not turn off after each use of things. So with full mode, when you make the cursor doesn't move while you can move your eyes, head, whatever. When you want to move the cursor somewhere, you pop. The cursor pops over there and then turns on head tracking. And at which point you can blink, you can look around, and the cursor will not follow your eyes or be affected by the blinking. It only follows your head. So you move your head to nudge the cursor over to fine tune it. You make your second pop sound, and then it clicks. So I'll demo that right now. Omega Mouse. So as you can see, it's sort of a two-phase clicking process. Just bringing your attention to the Omega Mouse.talon file, you can see there is a Omega Mouse mode setting here. So if the zero is set, or if the value is set to 0, it'll be full mode, 1 will be light mode, 2 will be basic mode, and if you end up changing the mode while Omega Mouse is on, you have to restart Omega Mouse in order to get it to capture the new value. So here, I've made a little document to demonstrate some movement, and I'll also demonstrate some like dragging and dropping with the full mouse, and then once we go through that, I'll go ahead and switch over to light mode so you can see kind of how that works, and I'll try to just mess around a bit with it. So here, let's see how this works. So here I'm going to try and click on each of these little dots just to kind of show you what's going on. The blue ones will kind of show when the target's a little closer together how well it works. Green is also a bit closer. I'll probably just show how the head tracking works there. And then 14 and 15, I'm going to demonstrate just the ability how to relocate. Because if you do the first pop and the cursor is not where you want it to be, you might want a quick way to move over. So reload. Drag. Drop. Drag. Drop. Drag. Copy that. Paste that. Paste that. Shifter. Mod up. Drag. Controller. Clear right. drag, drag, clear right, clear right. Alright, so it's a quick demo of Omega Mouse, the full mode. So now let's try using Lite mode. The way Lite mode works is as you, the cursor will not move, after you do a click or a drag or whatever, but the clicking is separated into a popping sound to move the cursor and then a voice command to actually click. Usually in Talon, popping sounds are reserved for clicking. I just personally thought that if I was gonna split up the process into a voice command and like a popping sound, popping sounds are registered much quicker than a voice command is. Talon doesn't have to parse the voice command. So I just thought, well, I think it's a little more satisfying to see the cursor pop over to where you're looking immediately, and then just having a little patience to let it parse the clicking command to actually select it, because you're hovering over the target anyways, instead of, using some kind of command like move there or something, and then waiting a second before the cursor actually moves. And then the pop being like a quick click. I just felt the former was better than the later. So Lite mode doesn't move in between, the cursor doesn't move until you pop over. But so the advantage with Lite mode is that you can keep popping all you want and the cursor will move every time you pop, because that's all the pop does. And then I'm using a voice command called yum to click. To bore you with the details, I thought when you're popping, if you pay attention to your tongue, when you pop, your tongue has to kind of block the back of your throat to like kind of allow like a bit of a vacuum or like a cave to form in your mouth, so the pop sound comes out. So at that point, it just kind of felt like you would want a word that starts from the back of your throat, like yum, or maybe even gum or something. And then likewise, when you go to start a pop, you're going to want your lips to be together, and the sound in yum gets you to that point. So it kind of allows for a quick, popping, yumming, kind of back and forth, back and forth. So anyways, that's why you'll be hearing me saying yum. So let's check it out. Delete 1. Omega restart. Yum. 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 Drag. Drop. Yum. Yum. Drag. Drop. Drag. Drop. Copy that. Paste that. Paste that. Drag. Drop. drag, controller, drop, clear right, drag, drop, clear right. Okay, so that's the basics of light mode. Now let's try basic mode, which is very similar to light mode, except the cursor does not stop moving between selections. So this could be helpful if you, I guess, find yourself needing to make lots of little adjustments all the time, or you don't want the cursor to stop moving. It just kind of helps if you need something a little more maneuverable like that. So let's check it out. Yum. Delete. 2. Yum. Omega restart. Yum. 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 Drag. Wait. Drop. Copy that. Paste that. Paste that. Drag. Drop. Drag. Drop. Drag. Controller. Drop. Yum. 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 Okay, so that's sort of the basics of how this all works. As you can see, the different modes might help you with certain, I don't know, maybe different parts. They might have different uses or functionalities depending on what app you're using or what you typically do on the computer. You can probably see though a couple things, I guess. One, the eye tracking is a bit off. I probably should have recalibrated before doing this. Let's see if maybe recalibration will help with some of the results on the accuracy. Part of it though is just because of my corneas are not great, so the accuracy is probably more off for me than it would be for you. But that's one of the reasons why being able to separate um, the movement and the clicking into kind of separate, distinct like parts was sort of important for me, is because the accuracy for me is just not great. So I need to be able to manipulate or further fine tune the movement or the action I'm trying to do without it kind of forcing me to always look off target all the time. So part of the clunkiness is kind of designed into it because that's kind of what I needed due to my like cornea issue and stuff. Which is why I recommend, if you're at all able to use like the normal control mouse, like go for that. I think it's better than this. But if it's not working, like I say, kind of for a niche audience like me, I guess, maybe this will be helpful. But let's try recalibrating and see if that like maybe works better. Run calibration. Okay, so let's see how this is going to work now. I'm going to go back to, let's go back to full mode. Delete, 0, yum, omega restart. Reload. That works a lot better. I should have done that calibration before I did this video. But as you can see, it does function like that. I will say the thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video is a bit on the setup. So here. So there are, so this function and this function need to be added into the mouse.talon file in the Talon community repo. So normally what you'll see is this guy right here, tracking.control_toggle, will just be right here next to control mouse. Likewise, tracking.control_zoom_toggle will be right next to zoom mouse. So that's just the community repo's way of toggling control mouse and zoom mouse on and off. The way that Omega Mouse works is that it just turns the it turns head tracking and eye tracking on and off at different times. There are a couple of variables that it keeps track of, and those variables will tell Talon Voice to do Omega Mouse actions instead of what you would normally get otherwise. So if you are switching from Omega Mouse to control mouse or zoom mouse without making this edit, it will turn, Talon Voice will simply turn on those other modes, and the Omega Mouse stuff will still remain, and it's going to confuse things up. And so I didn't want to deal with overriding these internal functions of tracking.control_toggle. Kind of I was warned by Aegis not to do that. So instead I created two functions. So there's user.control_mouse_switch, and then there's user.zoom_mouse_switch. So those two functions need to be added in instead of the two that are there typically. So this guy here needs to replace this guy, and all I'm doing is I'm just adding a little hashtag, little £sign in front, and that tells Talon to ignore that line. So this does not happen, and this does instead, and that way if you ever need to get rid of Omega Mouse, it's really easy to just delete this and you're right back into it. So if you do decide to install Omega Mouse, just make sure this looks like that. Another issue is, I believe if you're an Apple user, just FYI, there's a function here called Omega Mouse modifiers release function. So this just releases all the modifier keys go up. If you're using Windows, then Alt works here, but if you're using a Mac, you're going to want to instead have Command, I believe is the key that goes up. Instead of this, you can just £sign this out so that it works appropriately for you. I'm hoping that that's all you need to do. I've not tested this on a Mac, but hopefully that's it works just as well. So that's basically it. That's how Omega Mouse works. There are a few different file types. There's Omega Mouse. So I'll go over some of these other like actions maybe in another video specifically. But you have things like left click, double click, relocating the mouse if you're in the two-phase clicking. There's a thing here to check like the state of things, just to see kind of like what mode it's in and what's going on. There's a wait function if you just want the cursor to stop at some point. So full mode just overwrites, right? It's just overwriting all those other like basic commands. And if you check out the on GitHub, there's a README file that spells all this out. I just thought a YouTube video would be a helpful addition to kind of help explain it if it maybe seems a little inaccessible to like someone who's not a coder like me. So anyways, I hope that it is a helpful tool for you. I hope that maybe one day, I don't know, with maybe advances in tech, or maybe with some other tweaks I can make, like maybe control mouse in its more natural form will work for me. But for now, this is sort of the workaround I have. So hopefully, if you find yourself in a similar position like me, hopefully this is helpful and it helps you be able to use your computer again, maybe when you couldn't before. So I guess that's it. And yeah, hope you find it helpful. Thanks.